Hey guys, hi everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. S25. Hello, 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 Adil, Pramod, Manash, Usman. Good evening, Samita. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Good evening, Rachan. Good evening, Aka. Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. So we will be starting in a minute. Let's wait for rest of the people to join. Hello, Ubed. So let me put a message in the WhatsApp group asking students to join, and then we will start very soon. Okay. So allow me only 1 minute, and then we'll start our class. I hope I'm audible as well as visible, right? Perfect. So I can see people are joining. Good evening, Ankit. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Great. Okay. So I guess we can start our session now because people are joining. It's going to take them 2-3 minutes for the rest of the people to join. Sir, is there any WhatsApp group for? Yes, there is actually. So please remind me at the end of today's class, Manash. I will share the WhatsApp link, group link, and you should definitely join that for all the notifications and for all the announcements that I make there. Okay. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I can see people are joining. So let's wait 1 minute for rest of the people to join, and then we are going to start our class. Everyone, if you have been part of this batch, we have started this batch in August. Okay. Where we started our batch with HTML, CSS, and then finally we completed our JavaScript as well. And now, finally, we are going to start our what? We are going to start our React. So please make sure that you stay up till end because introductory session is always very important for everyone. So do not even think of leaving the class in between because whatever we will discuss today, trust me, this will be the most theoretical thing that we are going to learn about entire React. After that, we will just learn coding, we will just learn concepts. But this will be the basic building blocks. This will be the backbone of entire React that we are about to discuss in today's class. Walaikum salam, Mir Fazil. Good evening, Pradnya. Good evening, Shubham. So, shall we start, guys? Come on. Shall we start our class? Everyone, good evening, Shubham. Good evening. I want everyone to put something in the chat so that we can start our class. Good evening, Ashwak. Good evening, Manish. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Perfect. So let's finally start our class. I want everyone to like this video right now and please share it with your friends and whoever is looking for React so that they can join. Also, they can take lab of this entire course that we have. Walaikum salam, Sadi. Walaikum salam, Najam. So let's start. Until now, we have taken 27 lectures in this entire MERN course, and we have already completed HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And whoever has been part of that journey, so congratulations to all of them. But now, in today's class, we are going to start one of the very most demanding library of front end development and one of the very, very famous library of the front end development, which is React. So let's start. Let's not waste any time. See, this is what we are going to learn in our next few weeks. Entire React. And when I say entire React, I'm not going to leave even a single concept out of it. Whether it is functional based components, whether it's class based components, everything will be discussed. So please make sure you join entire course. Before we start React, we know React is a library. What does library mean? We will come to that later on. Library of what? Library of JavaScript. But the point that we need to understand until now is why do we use this library to build user interfaces? But my question to all of you is until now, we have learned three things: HTML, we have learned CSS, we have learned JavaScript. Why are we not already creating our web applications with this? The first and the most important question that should be actually answered even before we start React: why do we need React? Because yes, we can create wonderful applications, wonderful user interfaces, wonderful dynamic web applications with help of these three as well. So why do we need React? The answer might be, sir, to make things easy. No, even though it makes our things very easy, but the point is We need to actually understand it from the different perspective. Okay. Yes, Jitendra, you can start the React without CSS, but make sure on the same time you actually learn CSS as well. The point actually is always, and this has been always the target of every single developer. Number one is efficiency. Most important point. How efficient is the web application that you have actually created? The efficiency is the main agenda and the main crux behind we learn React. Why we learn React? What do we mean by efficient? One day, one of the developers in Facebook, they realized that actually when they have created web applications using JavaScript only, and when they try to make the manipulations inside this particular web application, somehow it is slow. Why it is slow, we will talk about that. So they realized, one of the developers realized, okay, when I write a query to make a manipulation inside the web application which I have created using simple JavaScript, pure JavaScript, the manipulation is actually slow because it is doing a lot of things in the background. So we need to understand that is actually the reason why React came into existence, because one of the developer realized that it is slow. But when we say JavaScript is slow, don't you think we actually mean DOM is slow? Yes or no? DOM is slow. Give me a quick confirmation that when we say JavaScript is slow, although we don't know why it is slow, we will talk about that. But the point is, if we say JavaScript is slow, the manipulation that we are trying to create, don't we mean actually DOM is slow? Yes. Why? Because we know as soon as we create a particular web application, open a tab inside our website where we serve that website, it actually creates window object out of it, which means the website that we are serving to that window, actually browser creates an object model of it. Browser understands it as an object model. So if we say JavaScript manipulations are slow, we all can clearly say that actually DOM is slow. But the question is, why is DOM slow? Why is DOM slow? And how is DOM slow? Let's talk about a very simple example here. Let's suppose I have a small web application. Please make sure you take notes on the same time. Okay. Let's suppose I have a simple web application where there's a lot of text that I have, maybe some images, maybe some buttons, maybe some list, meaning there are a lot of things that are on this website. Maybe I have added a functionality. Because of that functionality, whenever I click on this particular button, it actually changes the content of this particular text tag, whatever it is, and it makes it Adfar Rashid. That's my name, which means that I have added an event on this button. And when I click on this button, it is actually bringing a change inside this text. So can I say this particular feature is nothing, but actually I am trying to do a DOM manipulation? Of course, yes. If this website is created with pure JavaScript, even if it is not, the entire thing is browser will understand the website via a model called as DOM. So when you make a change, it is making a change, and the manipulation that's happening is DOM manipulation. Very good. If we have to create and understand it from the pictorial representation, can we say the website that I actually talked about a few seconds back, that this website actually will be created and the model of it will somehow look like this? Maybe like this. Yes or no? Like, this is one of the possibilities that actually my browser will create a model of this, maybe like this. Yes or no? Is this possible? Of course, it is possible, because it depends on the tags and elements, how many nodes will be created. But of course, this is one of the possibilities that this might be the DOM structure of my web application. The web application that I am talking about, where I am making a click, on this button to bring a change. Let's suppose that this particular change that I'm actually talking about, maybe this is the node, this particular thing is the node on which I am actually trying to bring a manipulation. Let's suppose for our discussion, this is the node. According to my web application structure, when I click on this, it is making a change over here. Let us suppose that this is the node that is representing that particular change. Now, you guys tell me, You guys tell me. I'm not going to give an answer to this, but you guys tell me. Don't you think when that manipulation happens, when that change happens, the best and the most efficient way is that it should only refresh this particular node inside of my document object model? Yes or no? That is the most appropriate and most efficient way, that if this action is bringing change in that particular node, it should actually refresh that particular node only. Simple, right? Yes, of course, yes. That's how it should be. But that's not what happens. That's unfortunately not, that's not what happens. So basically what happens, that when I am trying to bring a change inside this node, my DOM actually repaints the entire web application. That's the worst case. It actually redesigns the entire flow of my web application. So that is the worst case that might happen there. So what it is supposed to do, it was supposed to bring a change inside this DOM, but that's not why it stops. It actually might affect this as well, might affect this as well, which might in turn affect this whole node, which might in turn affect this whole node, which might even affect this whole node. Which means whatever the style algorithms it had, whatever the paint already was created on this particular web application, it has to repaint the whole web application. That is the worst case. Now, what was my intention? Just to change little bit of my web application, but it can actually affect repainting. It can actually result in repainting or redesigning the entire flow. Do you think that's a problem? Do you think that's a problem? Give me a quick answer. Quickly. Hello, Govind. Hi. Right. Very good. It's a problem. Because this is not what we were actually looking for. So when we try to bring a small manipulation, the point was that it should bring change in this particular node only. Even if it does not do that, maybe inside this particular node only, but not on the entire branch, but not on the entire document. That's not what my plan was. And if that happens, think about it. Think about it. That if it decides to repaint the whole web application, don't you think it's time consuming? Of course, yes. So we all can conclude one small point out of it. And that small point is, the conclusion is, the DOM that we are talking about, the pure DOM, is actually slow. The original DOM is slow. Do we all agree with it? Yes or no? Do we all agree? Of course, yes. We should agree with this, that DOM is slow. That's where actually React came from. Because our entire agenda was that if my DOM is slow, let's try to solve the problem. In order to solve this problem, what we actually got, we got a library, and that library is called a React. So now let's discuss what React is. But this is why we need React, because DOM is slow. Now, I am not talking about how it solves the problem. We will talk about that later on. But we can completely agree and we can completely conclude right now, yes, we have found the problem. We have found the root cause why we have React in the first place. Moving a little bit forward. Here came a library, and that library was named as React. It is backed by Facebook. It's a library, and it has only one agenda: to create user interfaces, dynamic user interfaces, in a more readable way, in a more efficient way, in a more easier way. Now, we all can agree to one point, that if in this universe there is something that is backed by Facebook, it's not going to die soon, right? It's not. So if there is something that actually has a backing of Facebook, this Meta company that we have, it's not going to die soon. That's why it's too much famous right now in the market as well. No one will actually hire you if you only knew HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, unless and until you don't actually know a library or a framework with it. Now, that can be Angular, that can be React. Okay, so we have Angular as well, we have Vue as well. But as of now, this is the library that we are going to learn, not Angular, because I myself don't know Angular, so I cannot teach you Angular, right? So let's focus on React. Yes, we have multiple frameworks. We have Vue is there, we have Angular, we have React itself. We have Next.js, but Next.js is itself part of React. Okay. Now pay attention. What does UI stand for? User interface. Okay. But don't you guys think that when we talk about user interface, we actually create user interface with HTML and the combination of CSS? Right? Of course, yes. We do that. We create user interfaces with the help of HTML and CSS. And then why did we use JavaScript? To bring dynamicality, in a static website. Now React gives us a way to actually merge all of these three things together and give you a tool to create user interfaces, that too in a far efficient way. Then let me tell you a small thing that later on we found React is slow. Then we actually Next.js came into picture. So you can think, after 2 years, people will come to know that Next.js is slow and they will create something else, Adfer.js, right? So that's how things work over here, right? So React is a user interface library with help of which we can create user interface. But there's a small point. That brings me to one of the most important topics for today's class. What are the properties of React? Okay. And the first property that we are going to actually talk about is that it actually creates SPA applications. And we mean by SPA single page applications. That whenever we talk about React web application, we will always and always talk about one type of application, one type of website, which is single page applications. Now the question is, what do we mean by single page application? React is a library. React is a library. It's not a framework. It's a library. That's it. Okay. Do not think about, and we have not discussed right now what library is. I will come to that later on. We don't know what framework is, but as of now, note down on your rough copy, it's a library. Then we will understand what it is. Okay. What do we mean by single page web application? Let me give a simple example of it. You guys use Facebook, yes or no? You guys use Instagram, maybe, right? You guys use something like this, right? When we talk about Facebook, you simply try to explore through Facebook. And at the bottom, let's suppose at the bottom, there's a nav bar where there is home page, there is search page, there's messages, although I'm very bad with these icons or drawing, and maybe there is some people, something like this. These are the icons that we usually see on Facebook, right? You guys tell me, right now I am on news feed. I am looking at the posts that people have posted on that particular interface. When I actually go to Facebook, messages over here, do you think it reloads the entire web application? Or do you think it simply changes this particular area where news feed was visible with the messages from the Facebook? What do you think? Do you think it reloads the entire resources of the web page? Or do you think it simply changes one small component of that website and replaces it with the messages? What happened? It changes only that specific part. This is what we mean by single page application. That there will be components. One component will be replaced by another component will be replaced by another component, but it will never refresh the entire page. Another example over here for the same Facebook. You are on Facebook website and there are a lot of posts over here. You simply try to scroll down. Now, when you scroll down, at one point reaches that all those posts, there is no longer a post. Do you see that in order to see more posts, you actually refresh the page, entire page? No. It actually reloads at the bottom. And then you drag up and you see rest of the posts. This is what we mean by single page web application. Another thing, you have a post somewhere and you simply have one of the very important options here called as like. One of the another options called as comment. Now, when you actually like on this, let's suppose it's right now 10. When you click on it, it will become 11. But in order to bring this change, do you think it refreshes the page or it actually refreshes that small component only? Only that small component. Similarly, when you put a comment, do you think you see comment after refreshing the whole page or instantly? Instantly, we see the comment. So this is what we mean by single page web application, that it's only one page. The changes that you see is it is simply happening. The components are being replaced with other components, but there will be part that will always be there. Let me give a small overview of the single page web application. Let's open YouTube. I'm not saying it's single page web application. I'm not talking about that. Definitely remember, I'm not saying that it is a single page web application. Remember that. But you can clearly see I have left side this nav bar. Yes or no? I have this top section search bar. Yes or no? Now I will click on, maybe let's suppose Lamicons here, one of the channels, or I will click on News Laundry. Now when I click on News Laundry, please pay attention towards this nav bar and this particular search and this icon that we have. So let me click on this. Do you think it actually refreshes these components? Yes or no? Do you think it refreshes the whole page? No. It simply changes this small component that we have. This is what we mean by single page application. On the other hand, if I go on a website, let's suppose Amazon.in, maybe. See, if I click on mobiles, when I click on mobiles, it refreshes the whole page. This is multi-page application. So React is a free library, user interface library, with help of which you can only create single page web application. That's why we will very often see one of the very important keywords, which is SPA. SPA stands for single page web application. I hope this makes sense. Moving forward. Now, there's another very important property that React has, and that's called component based architecture. Okay. As I said, today's class will be mostly theoretical, but also we will see a little bit code in today's class itself as well. Okay. We have to create some code, so please have some patience and please pay attention. Second very important property of React is it follows a particular architecture called as component based architecture. Now what do we mean by component based architecture? This is what we mean. That the application that I am trying to create, I will simply break it into different components, and then whenever I need that component, I will reuse it instead of creating it again. For example, I simply have a web application here, and over here I have buttons. Okay, buttons like this. On these buttons, I have simply home, I have simply about, I have simply, let's suppose, contact. Okay, then over here I have some random content, whatever the content is, right? And I am going on to this web page first time, so it will open up home page. Now in order to create this particular home button, this is a very small example. I know I have to use a tag called as button, right? And then I will simply go here and put some content in it like home, and I will close my button tag like this. Similarly, in order to create same about, I will go and write button. Then over here, I'm simply going to tell it about, and then close this button like this. Then another example is button is button. Over here, I'm going to write contact, and then over here, I'm going to put button. Yes or no? Do you think these are the three buttons that I will create in order to create these three buttons? Of course, yes. But don't you think all of these things are repeating itself? Yes. As I said, this is a very simple example. Now, later on, upscale it a little bit and then see the real example on your own as well. But this will give you a complete understanding of what we mean by component-based architecture. Here, this button that I have, instead of repeating the same user interface again and again, I won't do that. I will simply create a component of it. And maybe I will name that component as button. But how do we do that? That's something else. That's code. And then instead of writing the same code again and again, I will tell it simply use this button component again, use this button component again, use this button component again. So wherever I need this button, I am going to reuse the previous component which I created. That's what we mean by component-based architecture. How do we pass different text to it? That's something else. But you got the idea what we mean by reusable component-based architecture. That I have some user interface. Instead of writing the same code again and again, I won't do that. I will actually create a component out of it and then reuse the same component again and again to create my web application. This has one very important advantage. The big application that we have, we actually break it into smaller pieces. We make our web application more modular. And then whenever we have a bug, we actually are able to locate that particular bug very easily as well. Another simple example to give you an idea of what components are. If you look at this home page, when I click on this, I have this div, right? Sorry, this container here. Let's suppose the container, if I try to break it, this container over there has cards. One card, another card, another card, another card, another card, another card. And all of these cards are exactly same thing. Like whatever this card is, but they are all same with different data only. Now, in order to create this, let's suppose I am using div, which means I will write again same div for this, again write same div for this, again write same div, same div, same div. I won't do that. But I will simply create this, I will convert this into a single component. Now, instead of writing all the code again, I will simply call this component here, call this component here, call this component here, here, or wherever I need. So it will save my time as well. Why? Because I don't have to repeat the same code again and again, change the data again and again. No, I will simply create a component out of it, call it wherever I need. This is what we mean by component-based architecture. Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation in the chat, everyone. And please make sure you like this video right now. Please give me a confirmation in the chat, sir. These two properties we completely understood. Quickly. Very good. Everyone must reply. Third property, and one of the important properties that we have in React is it's called one-way data binding. What is it called? Third important property. Guys, as I said, this is a theoretical class, so please make sure you take notes. One-way data binding. What do we mean by one-way data binding? Before that, let me come back to component-based architecture quickly. We know that we have our website, let's suppose like this. And there are a lot of content on it, maybe images, buttons, texts, all those containers, all those different sections we have. Now, our React says, break the same website into different components. So maybe this navbar will be treated as one component. Maybe this left section will be treated as one component. Maybe this card will be treated as another component. Maybe inside it, I will have another few more components like this, right? Maybe not, depends. Over here, maybe I have more components, right? This can be one of the very simple examples. Maybe over here only I have two more components. Then at the bottom, I have something like this. Over here, maybe I have only two components like this, right? It depends. But can we all agree to one point that if you look at this particular architecture, leave coding aside, from the drawing perspective as well, we can all understand that this is the main and singular container we have. Single container that we have, the main parent of this entire web application. Yes. So if I have to break this into the component structure tree, I can say that first of all, there is one parent, which is this. Then there is one child, second child, third child, fourth child, which means with respect to this outer container, we have four children. So one children, second children, third children, fourth children. Then this first children that I have, it has more four children. So maybe first children. Let me try to drag a little bit right. So this is first children, second children, third children, fourth children, right? Similarly, we talk about second. Second has two children only. So one children, second children. We talk about three. It has six children. So let's suppose I have created six children, whatever they are. And over here, I have two children. Do you think from the perspective of component structure tree, this is the tree that will be yielded out of it? Yes or no? Huh? Very good. So we all can conclude one point, that ultimately, even that's true for your HTML websites as well, HTML, CSS, JavaScript website, that there will be a single container and that will have different childrens. And they will have more nested children, so on and so forth. That's how hierarchy goes. But when we talk about transferring data from one component to another component, because since it is a component-based architecture, which means that we should be able to transfer data, whatever our data is, whether it's my name, whether it's some memory component, whether it's anything. When we talk about transferring data, how can we transfer data? And related to that, there's one property and one thing noted down. It's 100% true. which is one-way data binding. And that is, let's suppose this component requires a data point, and that data point is my name, which is Adfar. I want name. Now, if we want to transfer data, and this data is maybe defined in the main parent, remember, always and always, data can be transferred in React structure only from top to bottom approach, from parent to children. And we do that with help of props or with help of something else. But the transfer of data will always be from top hierarchy to low hierarchy, which means from here it will go here, then it will go here. It cannot take direct jump from here to here if we talk about props, but it can take direct jump if we talk about some other concept. But whether it takes direct jump or it takes jump via components, it will always be one-way data binding, which means only from parent to children. It can never be the reverse. You can never transfer data from here to here, then from here to here. You can never transfer from here to here, then here to here. So whatever data you transfer between the components, it will always be transferred from parent to child, then child to grandchild, then grandchild to grandchild, or from any jump to anything, but it has to be the child of it. It has to be in the branch child of it. This is what we mean by one-way data binding. Am I clear? Give me a quick confirmation, everyone in the chat. Quick confirmation. Quickly. I know I'm a little bit fast. This is theoretical. You can watch it again. You can slow the speed, but you can watch it later on. But I want every single person here to type yes. Okay. So this is what we mean by one-way data binding. Do we have two-way data binding? Two-way data binding means that we can transfer data from parent to child, child to grandchild, or we can do the reverse from grandchild to parent, then parent to grandparent. No, we cannot do that. There's only one-way data binding, only from top to bottom, top hierarchy to bottom, parent to child, child to grandchild, grandchild to grandchild, whatever we have, whatever the structure is. So that's what we mean by data binding or data transfer. Even though there's a concept inside React which is two-way data binding, but we will discuss that later on what that actually means. Now here I come to the most important property, and this property is very much asked in the interviews as well. From whatever discussion we have done until now, there's one question related to interviews that will be asked at least 7 times out of 10, which is what do we mean by one-way data binding. So this is your interview question number 1. No one will ask you, hey, tell me what's React. They know you know what's React. Everyone knows that. A library used to create user interface, a single page web application. But they will ask you what is one-way data binding. And the second most important, like if I am the interviewer, I will ask this 100% of time. The fourth property is virtual DOM. Remember when we started our class, we talked about one thing, that our actual DOM, the website we create, the actual DOM is slow. Do we guys remember that? Yes, sir, we remember that. The actual DOM is slow. So that means now that when I say React was solution of that, it means React must have resolved that problem, right? Simple. And that's what we have to talk about, virtual DOM. So what happens and what do we mean by virtual DOM? So React uses a nakli DOM. A nakli DOM. Virtual DOM means that's not the real DOM. So I'm very confused. Let me remove that confusion. I am here to remove that, right? Let's remove that confusion. Let's understand properly what we mean by virtual DOM. This is what happens. Always remember one thing. Let me create another page here. Okay. Always remember one thing. It does not matter what kind of framework you create, what kind of library you use. Ultimately, browser understands JavaScript. Browser understands DOM, actual DOM. And browser will display actual DOM only. Remember that. When you go on a website now, you see all the things there. It is the actual website. It is the actual DOM. Even though we have a concept of virtual DOM, although we don't know what virtual DOM at this point of time is, but remember, whenever you open a website, it's always the original website there, the original DOM. But let's understand what virtual DOM is. First of all, the property name is virtual DOM. So let me quickly write virtual DOM. As we all can agree, virtual means that's not real, right? But let's understand what it is. Leave virtual DOM aside. We have created a website. using React, let's suppose as well. Let's suppose we know React. And with the help of React, we have created a website. Whatever this website is, there's an image, whatever it is, there's a buttons, there are lists, there are tables, and so on and so forth. Now, if you guys tell me, I have created this website, I have servered it on a domain www.variableverse.com. Please make sure you subscribe the channel right now because I need subscribers, okay? Variableverse.com. Now, whenever any user goes to this website, any user goes to this domain, this URL, of course, the same website will be created. Yes or no? Right? Same website will be given. You will get the same response 100% time? Of course, yes. And we also know as soon as you get the response, browser will try to understand what is on this website, which means browser will actually paint the object model of this website, which is its actual DOM will be created instantly, right? Because problem was not in creation of actual DOM. Problem was when you try to bring manipulations in it. Remember that. Problem was not that actual DOM, my website is actually modeled in actual DOM, and that's what the problem was. No. The problem was when I tried to bring manipulations in it. Remember that, okay? So actual DOM is created, and let's suppose actual DOM somehow looks like this. You can create any kind of pictorial representation here, whatever it is, but I think you will get an idea. So let's suppose this is the actual DOM representation of this particular website. Do we all agree? Very good. Now React says that as soon as this actual DOM will be created, this browser DOM or actual DOM will be created for this particular website. And right now I'm not doing any manipulations in it, it's static. So on the same time, I will create clone of it, copy of the actual DOM. So React will simply do one small thing. It will simply create copy number 1 of it. And you will say, sir, if we say we are dealing with efficiency, we are trying to increase the efficiency, but don't you think actual DOM is already little, it's taking space. When you create copy of it, it will again take space. So we are maybe increasing speed, but on the cost of memory, no. Always remember this copy one that is being created of this browser DOM, it is very lightweight, very lightweight. For example, let's suppose if this is 1 MB, this will be maybe 1 KB or even 1 byte. So that it's simply the clone of it, copy of it. It's shortcut of it, simply like that. It's not like the actual sized and all those things. It simply contains references maybe, but it is copy of it, very lightweight copy of it. So which means I will simply get copy like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Let me quickly create 4 childrens to this. I should have created 3, but let's create 4. Something like this. And this copy that React creates, this is called a virtual DOM. That's why we call it virtual DOM. So it's a very lightweight copy of my actual DOM. So what has happened? That my website which I open on my browser, actual DOM will be created because of course on the website, actual DOM is visible. It's not virtual DOM visible, actual DOM is visible. And on the same time, when actual DOM is created, my React will actually create a very lightweight copy of it. And that copy is actually called as virtual DOM. Until now, everything is fine. Now here comes the best part. As I said, that it was actually about manipulations, the changes that we bring in our website. Maybe let's suppose I have clicked on it. And maybe because of this click, my node which was supposed to change, maybe this was the node that was supposed to change. So let me add plus to it. Let me mark it. So when I click on this, there is some change on my website, whatever the change is. And maybe this was the node on which it is supposed to make a change. Now React says, with help of its some algorithms internally, whatever that's called, I will talk about that. React says, I will not do the change instantly on that node. No. But what I will do is, I will actually create copy of virtual DOM now. So copy 1 was already there of actual DOM. Now another copy will be created of the same DOM, which will again be a very lightweight. So another copy is created. But in this copy, React actually implements the change in that particular node. React identifies that particular node of that particular DOM where change is supposed. So now what I will do is I will simply get something like this, something like this, something like this. I will get maybe like this, and then I will simply have four children's of it over here, over here, over here, and then we simply have something like this. Now, where is the change supposed to happen? Over this. And it did that. It identified that particular node. Like this is the place where I'm supposed to make a change. But you guys tell me now, with help of the second copy of my DOM, it has just identified that particular node where it is supposed to make a change. Do you think the change will be right now reflective in my website? Quickly, do you think change will be reflective in my website? No, very good, right? It won't be. Why? Because you need to understand always and always on the output website, actual DOM is visible, I mean. Unless and until that change is not made here, it won't be visible. Remember that. That's the most important thing that you need to understand. Somehow people get confused. Okay, so now we have identified the node, change will be visible. No. Until this whole, whatever it's supposed to do, until that whole process happens, until my actual DOM is not updated where it needs to make the change, my output won't change. Now, over here, it has just identified it. So we have copy one virtual DOM, copy two. And this copy two contains that particular node. We have identified, React has identified with whatever it does internally to identify it. It runs few algorithms, whatever it does, we don't care about that. But it has identified it. Now, here React runs an algorithm internally. And that algorithm is called diffing algorithm. What is the algorithm called? Diffing algorithm. What this diffing algorithm does is, it simply compares copy 1 and copy 2 with respect to each other. It subtracts, you can say. So it simply will subtract, find the difference between copy 1 of this virtual DOM and copy 2. Now you guys tell me, if I simply take this particular copy of DOM and place right on top of it, don't you think now the difference will be that particular node only? Quickly, if I simply subtract this copy to copy 2, or if I simply overlap them on each other, I will actually get that particular node on which I'm trying to make a change. Yes or no? Simple mathematics, simple algorithm. Whatever the algorithm's code is, as I said, we don't have to care about that. So now the diffing algorithm's outcome, the conclusion is that this diffing algorithm that React runs internally, this is responsible to conclude on which node change is happening by subtracting the differences of copy 1 and copy 2. By subtracting the differences of copy 1 and copy 2. Now after that, what happens? Very good, Rohit. Now what happens? Now this diffing algorithm has only concluded something, that this is where change is supposed to do. But after that, what React does is, React actually runs another algorithm, you can say, or it runs a process. And that process, that algorithm's agenda is to find the minimum number of steps that are required to make changes on my original DOM. So I am not saying, and listen to this point very carefully, I am not saying whatever diffing algorithm gave us, only that node will be changed. No. I am saying now to implement the conclusion of diffing algorithm on my actual DOM, React executes another algorithm or another process that its entire agenda is to find the minimal number of steps. Minimal number of steps to actually bring the change inside my original DOM. And it does that. And to conclude all of this entire process in React is called reconciliation. So what is reconciliation process? So there are two terms that we came across. Number one is diffing algorithms. Number two is reconciliation. So diffing algorithms' entire agenda is to find the difference between copy 1 and copy 2, right? And it will give you the output. And then that output has to be actually implemented on my actual DOM. So this actual DOM that we want actual have to bring the change, React actually implements another process, and its entire agenda is to find the minimal number of steps to actually implement the change on my actual DOM. And this entire process is called reconciliation process, to bring the change inside my original DOM. Now, as I said, it is minimal number of steps, which means it is not fixed. It can be now when we bring a change over here, maybe it will replace this entire node with only one node. Maybe that can be a change. Or maybe it will affect this much of the area. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm not saying that it is going to only bring change in size. No. But it will see what is the minimum possible number of steps that will actually implement this change inside my actual DOM. So, of course, if we are talking about minimal step, so what is the answer here? The answer is now our original DOM will be updated in most minimal possible number of steps. Not how many, but minimal number. And of course, that automatically means that we have to actually implement, we have to actually understand we have increased efficiency of our web application. We have increased the efficiency of our web application when reconciliation happened. Now, whatever change it did, let's suppose it replaced these three branches with change only one node. Now, it means what is going to happen? A new actual DOM is there now. Not the entire, it has not created the entire new. Now, it's not repainting the whole DOM. But this is what my new picture of DOM will look like. Please confirm, please give me a quick confirmation. Don't you think that? This is the new DOM? Actual DOM. And of course, as soon as actual DOM is updated, change will happen, will be visible in my web browser as well, will be visible in my Google Chrome as well, wherever I'm accessing that website. Do you think this is my new DOM? Now, as soon as this is my new DOM, the same process will happen. This is my actual DOM. Now React will create copy one of it. So over here, it's again copy will be created like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. Now this is what's happening, and you are actually, this called virtual DOM, and now you are simply surfing through your website. You are doing top, bottom, you are scrolling right, left, you are simply doing that. But as soon as this is at that point of time when you are just scrolling, you are not doing some manipulation. But as soon as you do a manipulation, another copy will be created. And that copy will have the change inside that particular node wherever we are trying to make a change. After that, React will actually execute an algorithm called as diffing algorithm. And then it will simply give the conclusion, and it will give you the subtraction, the comparison of these copy 1 and copy 2. And then it will try to find the minimal number of steps to implement the change in actual DOM. And that process is called reconciliation. And we will get again change in our actual DOM. And we again will get virtual DOM. And that's how the cycle runs entirely. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand this, guys? Everyone must apply. Everyone must apply. Every single student must apply. And I know that there are few students who are joining first time. I need a little bit of feedback from your side. Am I being fast? Or give me honest feedback in the chat quickly, because we have 1 hour and 10 minutes still left. Fiber mode, I don't have the complete idea of that, right? So allow me some time, and I will tell you what fiber mode is. Okay. Perfect. Sir, because first it compare with the copy 1 and copy 2. Why does it need to not compare directly with actual DOM? Because that's how it works, right? That's how it works. See, the point is, when it tries to find that particular node, it cannot implement a change directly on it. It can try to find that node by creating copy of it. It's already copy. We are not making change inside this. We are making change inside this. That's why it's creating another copy, right? So that's what we have. So that's why it needs to create copy. Yes, there's a memory consumption, small memory consumption, but not that many. Why? Because these are lightweight, very small lightweight copies. And it does it too fastly. It's not like it's going to take, to create copy 1, it will take 200 minutes. To create copy 2, it will create 100 minutes. No, it happens very fast. No, browser DOM, virtual DOM is related to our webpacks, or related to our React that we have. Sorry, not webpack, React. That it does not very fastly that, Govin. It does it very fastly. For example, If we are not talking about React, if we are trying to make a change directly, in order to repaint and run those algorithms again from the scratch, it might take, let's suppose, 10 seconds. But if we try to create copy over here, do the diffing algorithm, do the difference, and do the reconciliation process, it will take only 2 seconds. So even it is doing a little bit extra work, but it does that very fast as compared to when it does the change directly on the original DOM. Right? I hope that makes sense. Am I clear? Perfect. So with this, until now, we have discussed 4 properties. Let me quickly repeat that. Okay. Number one property that we discussed was that it is a library with the help of which we can create single page web application. And we know what single page web application is. Second is component based architecture, because we know that if we want to achieve single page web application, we have to implement what is this called, component based architecture only. Third is one way data binding. We understood from top hierarchy to lower hierarchy. And fourth one is the answer to why, when we discussed and when we concluded that DOM is slow, what was the answer to it? And that's what we mean by virtual DOM. And I was in 219 around when I 220, I think I at the end of 220 I started learning React. And when I gave interviews, I learned React, I created good applications, and suddenly interviewer asked me what's reconciliation. And at that point of time, I did not know. So this reconciliation, diffing algorithm, but reconciliation is the most asked question in virtual DOM. What is reconciliation? So it's a process to actually find the minimum number of steps to bring the change in actual DOM. So the process is called reconciliation. And diffing algorithm, you understand, because diffing means difference of 2 copies. So with this, we have completed our 4th. Now, 5th important, most important property is JSX. Now, you will be wondering, Sir is saying everything most important, because I am teaching you only those properties which are important. JSX. But before we talk about JSX, let's set up our environment. Okay, let's set up our code environment. Then we can understand what is JSX is, because it is JavaScript extension. And this is what we actually use the syntax to write our React code. What JSX is, we will talk about it in a second. But before that, let's set up our environment. If there is anyone who is first time learning React, please make sure you follow it. Now, there are multiple ways of setting up the environment, multiple ways. Number one and simplest way is that we will use a command of React that React itself has given. There are 2 commands. We can use wheat or white, whatever you pronounce it. And second one is create React app. We can use those 2 ways. Another one is we can do everything from the scratch, but we don't prefer to do that. We don't do that. Even if you ask me, I don't remember how to do that now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here on my folder, and now I'm going to push this folder to GitHub as well later on. So remind me on my WhatsApp group that, sir, please share the GitHub link. I will share the entire code of HTML, CSS to all of you, whatever we have done until now. Okay. So let me go and let me create another folder with the name of React. And I will show you both ways of creating React web application. Inside this, you just have to open this folder inside our VS Code. Okay. Unfortunately, my VS Code has opened on the another screen, but let me open it here. Over here, I will not do anything else. I will directly create my terminal. And I will, as I said, I will show you both ways. The first and the most simple way that we used to have back in 220, React itself gave you, it's called, the command is npx create React app. Okay, create React app. It's used to, it's better to use white because it's fast a little bit. Although, as I said, this is introductory class, that's why I will show you both. And then you can work with anyone, whether you want to use wheat or white, whatever you call it, or you can use this. Okay. So npx create React app, and then your application name. We will name this application variable verse. And I will click enter. This is the command. Please someone put it in the chat so that other people can copy who are learning React first time. Please put it in the chat. So npx create React app variable verse. So I will click enter. So as soon as I click enter, it will start creating some stuff. You can see it's saying that I'm going to install packages. This might take some couple of minutes. And unfortunately, this is a little bit slow. So let it take some time, because until then, we are going to discuss something else. Govinda is asking a question, sir, when page is refreshed, that means it's multi-page application, or if it refresh specific place so that it's single page. First of all, when you perform an operation and you have to display some other user interface, and in order to display some user interface, if it is refreshing the page, then it's called a multi-page application. There are multi-pages. There's not just a single file that is created, but there are a lot of HTML files that are created. And in order to navigate from one file to another file, you create multiple files, right? That's what we mean by multi-page application. Single page application means it's a single page, it's a single file. And in order to navigate, you simply break your website into different components and then implement conditions and conditionally render different components. You will understand what single page web application means. Okay. It's not npm, it's npx. Meanwhile, it takes its time. It installs all these packages. There's something that we need to understand. To all the new students, please make sure that you install a software called as Node.js. Okay. I'm pretty much sure everyone has already installed it. Now, when we install Node.js, it actually gives you access to one of the package managers called as npm, Node Package Manager. It has more than 8 lakh softwares there. It's a software registry, you can say. With help of this npm, you can install any module. Now, when we talk about this React, in order to implement its all functionalities that we are talking about, we have not talked about few very important properties, which we will talk about in today's class itself as well. When we talk about all those things, they are all part of a library. Library means you have to install it. It's a package that you have to install in your web application. We use npm for that. Now, there are multiple packages that we use, like React DOM. Later on, in order to do routing, we use React Router DOM. In order to use Redux later on, we will use Redux, right? React scripts, for example. Although what are those, we will discuss about them. But the point that I'm trying to make you understand is that when we deal with React is a library. Library means it's already created. And now you install it, you import its dependencies, and you use it. And then in order to implement any functionality inside it, you have to actually import that functionality. That's what library means. So can we use NVM? You can use NVM. But what does NVM mean? NVM, I don't know what it stands for, although I know, but I don't remember it. But it actually allows you to go to the previous versions of Node. That's something different, coding geek, I think, right? So NVM is Node Version Manager, I guess, right? Node Version Manager. So why do we need Node Version Manager? Let me tell you quickly, everyone. There's a software that we have. It's called NVM, Node Version Manager. Sometimes you go on the internet, right? And you try to download some project of anyone else, any other software developer. Once you install it, inside that particular project, you see older dependencies, right? Maybe right now, the React version is 19. Maybe that it depended on 15th version of React, maybe, or whatever the older version was. So it means there are two options that you can do to run that project on your system. Either update its all dependencies to latest and then change code accordingly, or you can actually change the Node version on your system. So for that, we use NVM. So NVM is a software with the help of which you can change versions of your node in your system, so that those projects can actually work. What's the difference? I will talk about that. What's the difference between library and framework in a minute, okay? But now I'm talking about NVM. So as soon as you install Node.js in your system, there is it gives also you npm as well, not NVM, npm, Node Package Manager. So it will actually allow you in your local system to manage your packages properly. That's why when I actually wrote npx over here, npx create React app, it installed those packages because of that npm package manager that we have in our system. And you can see it has installed React, it has installed React DOM, it has installed React scripts with this create React app template that we have. And if I try to open this, you can clearly see there's a bigger folder right now that we have. To all those students that were part of this batch and we were only learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? We just had 3 files, maybe 4 or 5, but those were pure files. We never talked about anything like package.json, package log.json, git ignore, and all those things. So what are all these things? Like, why are they necessary? We have to understand that, right? And that's what we are going to learn after a break. So we will take a break of 10 minutes, not more than that. Please make sure you join back, and we will have a wonderful discussion on other properties of React, whether it is JSX, whether it is state management, or whether it is routing, or whether it is Redux. So all those properties, just the introduction to them. So all those things will be discussed after the break. So we will take a 10 minutes of break, not more than that, and then exactly after 10 minutes, we are going to start our class again. So do not even think of leaving the class. Make sure you stay here even in the break as well. So let me start the timer. See you guys. Bye after 10 minutes. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? I think I should be right. Perfect. Hello, hello guys. Hi everyone. Hi, hi. So I think some people have left the class. So let's wait 1 minute for rest of them to join back as well, and then we will start. Right? Although let's start. Let's not waste our time because it will be live on YouTube, so they can watch anytime. So we have understood a little bit of React, like what we are getting into. But if you see right now, the folder structure that we actually got, this is not what we have seen before until now. We have worked with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We have created our web application, but they were simple 3 files. And now, if you look, there's something node modules, there's something public, there's something SRC, there's something git ignore, package log.json, package.json, and readme, something like that, right? And we need to understand now what these files are. But before that, as we said, that React is a library. What do we mean by library, first of all? Or what do we mean by framework? There's a question, and it is asked in an interview, but not that oftenly, and it does not determine whether you know things about that particular stack or not. It's all about who is in the control of the project flow that's happening on that particular web application. If you are able to control the flow of the web application, it's pre-written code, you simply import it, call it, and wherever you need methods, you simply import and execute it. It's called a library. You are in the control. You define the structure. You define the control of the flow. And you call method wherever you want. This is called a library. On the other hand, if we talk about framework, you do not have the control of structure. For example, if we talk about Angular, if you install it, I have only installed it twice or thrice. I have not used Angular in my life ever. I've always used React, Next.js. But if you use frameworks over there, the structure and the flow is already defined. So you have to follow that particular flow only. That's what we mean by framework. Sometimes you might get confused. Okay, isn't sir here also flow defined? Flow is defined to some extent. That's why people are confused. People are confused, and sometimes they say it's a framework as well, but it's not, because you in most of the time it's a pre-written code. You import it, you call it. So I'm getting error while installing React at VS. You can use white. I will show you that particular command as well. Ignore it as of now, but pay attention now. If you see, the project that we have created, was the name of that project was variable verse, and I have gotten a folder structure like this. Let's understand these files line by line. First of all, readme file is simply a readme file. It simply contains some instructions related to like how this code is going to work. So it is nothing. You can delete it. On the other hand, this package.json is one of the most important files. Even when we learn later on in backend, when we create our own servers using Express, the first file that we are going to create is package.json. And it's one of the most important files in our entire web application, web department. What is it? It's a file that contains information about your project. Not only information, but all the dependencies as well. For example, right now we have installed our React structure. And if you can see, the dependencies on which this entire project depends is React DOM, React scripts, Web Vitals. So let's suppose you create a web application related to this and you posted it on the internet, and some of the people on the internet try to download it. Now, when they download it, they will go to package.json to determine what are the dependencies on this project. This project depends on. So they are going to determine that what are the dependencies this project depends on. They are going to determine from package.json. Not only that, in order to execute this particular project, or in order to install any other module, or in order to run any script, we run scripts. For example, in order to start this project, we will write npm start. But that command will only work if it is present inside our package.json under the scripts command. If you remove this particular line of code, you won't be able to run this React project and you won't be able to see its output. On the other hand, later on, when you will completely learn React, we will push this React projects on internet. We will give them a real deployment. For that, we have to create build version of it. And in order to create build version of it, we must have this command here. If we don't have this command, that's not going to work. That's why I say package.json is the most important file. It holds dependencies, it holds scripts, it holds information, the version, the owner, the name, all of those things related to this particular project. So you cannot delete it. Don't even think of deleting it. That brings me to another file called as package.json. Now, if you go and drag down on this, you can see there are a lot of things over here. What does package.json do? Package.json is a file that is actually responsible for making sure your dependencies are installed in your system. So package.json is actually that particular file that's responsible for making sure dependencies get properly installed. Right? So that's what we have package.json for. If you do not have any file, as soon as you start installing any particular package, this file will be automatically created, package.json. So these files, you got an idea like why do we have these two files, mandatory files. So do not even think of deleting them. Okay. After that, we have another file called as gitignore. You can delete it. It's not a necessary file. It's an optional file. But what is it for? This file is there to actually for only one reason, which is that later on when you try to push code from this particular repository to the GitHub, you would not want to send node modules to the GitHub because this can be installed in your, this can be brought up in your project by simply writing a command called as npm i. So you mention all those files or all those folders which you want your Git to ignore while pushing the files to the Git repository. So it saves your time as well. Why? Because when you try to push the code, you will not want node modules to be there. So at that point of time, you have mentioned node modules here. So once you try to push this repository only, this repository, node modules will not be there. So that's why we have a file called as .gitignore. So that my Git can ignore all these files or all these particular folders that we have. Okay. Then comes up this, there are 3 folders now that we actually deal with. Although we deal with only one, but there are 3 folders. Number 1 is node modules. Always remember that whenever you create any project and you install any node dependency, this folder will be always there. We just call it node modules. It simply contains those dependencies. The dependencies code that we actually have, all those things. It contains the dependencies itself. Okay, that's what we have this node modules here for. Package.json. As I said, package.json is the main file which will actually determine what scripts will be executed on this particular project, what dependencies this project depends on. So it will keep track of only those. Right? But on the other hand, package.json makes sure that dependencies get installed. So the dependency that you're trying to install, it gets installed properly. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, we understood node modules as well. And it's also very important because whatever dependency your web application has, it is part of this node module. So it's very important. After that, we have another folder. This is called public. Okay, and please understand the connection between my public and src. If you look at this particular project, first of all, let me go here and let me try to open my terminal and let's see what it will give me in the output. You can clearly see right now, and please note this point. If you have installed React first time, right now my terminal is the path is at React folder, which is the main folder here. But where is my project? My project is inside variable verse. So if you want to execute any script on this variable verse, you have to change the terminal's path to variable verse. That's why I will simply go here and implement cd variable verse. And once I do that, now my path is at variable verse. Now, whatever command I will write here, that will be executed on this particular repository called as variable verse. In order to execute your project, which has been created using a command npx create react app, we have a command called as npm start. What is the command? Npm start. But tell me one thing. How does my path variable verse know that if I actually execute npm start, it means something. How does it tell it that please show me the output of this React project? Because if you check your package.json, there is a command, there's a script that is start. So it tells it that using React scripts, please, whenever using npm I am writing script, execute, do something, start the server. So if I click enter over there, as soon as I do that, it will take a little bit of time and it will start a server over there that will give me the output of this particular web application. And if we see over here, there is the output we got opened in my other screen. So let me close that. Let me come back here. So now if I go here, you can clearly see it has actually opened up a server on my local host 3000, and we can see some output there, although we have not created this, but there is some icon that's circling around and there is some edit, whatever it is, but there is a output. We have created a small web application, and this is React web application, although we don't know how it is there. We don't know how it is there, but there is a output that we have. Let's focus onto that. If you see in my public folder, the most files that you actually see, they are related to images, like logo, like fav icon, like manifest.json, roberts.txt. These are the files. So it means this public folder is there to keep assets like images, the images that I will use in my folder project, the videos, all those assets that we have. So that's the main purpose of it. But apart from that, there is a file called as index.html. And guys, tell me one thing, it does not matter what you use. Don't you think always and 100% time the output that we have, it is nothing but HTML website that we have? Yes or no? It's a HTML website that we have, which means actually the main file that is being opened in the output is this index.html. How, sir? Please prove it. Let me prove it. This fav icon, you can delete it. You can bring up your own icon. This logo, you can delete it. Not necessary. Even let me delete this. Let me delete this as well. I don't need it. Now, manifest.json is a file which is used to create extensions. So you can delete this as well. Roberts.txt is a simple text file. But there's a fav icon. Let me delete this as well. I don't need it. But there's index.html. And now, since I have deleted the fav icon, I can remove this link as well. Although, let's keep this fav icon here. See, look at this HTML file that we have. If I remove all of these comments, I will get these comments later on back. So let me remove these comments here. If you look at this particular code, this entire HTML file, let me try to zoom it out. You can see there's only one div that's empty. Exactly. Very good, Obed. Browser only understands HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Entirely JavaScript. So we have in this index.html, the main file that I told you is in the output. It has only one div whose ID is root. Do you think there's any connection of any JavaScript file to this? Leave these links aside. Link tag does not allow you to link the JavaScript. It's script. Do you see anywhere my script, any JavaScript file is connected to this? No. So which means that as of now, it's a standalone file and there's a div whose ID is root. If I go to the output that I got few seconds back, if I try to refresh my page, if I go to inspect, you can clearly see in the output, the element section that I have. Do you see div whose ID is root? Sir, no. Do you see div whose ID is root? Yes. There's a div whose ID is root. Although inside that div, there's a lot of content that we have here that we can see. I will get to that. But yes, in my output, here you can see no script. You need to enable JavaScript to run this page. You can see the same text here as well. You can see div whose ID is root. That's why I said when you run this create React app project, actually the file which is in the output is index.html. And that's 100% true as well. In the output, it will be index.html only. Moving forward. Then there's no other file that we have. So how did this content actually ended up here? You can see there is a header. You can see there's an image. You can see there's an anchor tag, p tags, all those things. We have not put them in the index.html because my div whose ID is empty, whose ID is root, is empty. But you can see one another folder there called as src. This is your working environment. This is the folder where you will be working on your React. And if you see here, there's no HTML file that we have. There are pure JavaScript files and CSS files. You can remove them, but the main focus is on JavaScript files. If you go to app.js, you can clearly see there's a div. Let me remove all of this header that we have, and let me remove all of the css that we have here as well. And I don't know what the syntax is, because until now we have never created a function, javascript function that returns html. We have never done that. I will come to that later on. Over here I will create a h1 and I will simply say Adfar Rashid here. Okay. And if I right now go to my web application, you can clearly see Adfar Rashid here. So can I say whatever changes I am making here in my app.js, those are the changes that are reflected in the output? Yes. Which means somehow this app.js is connected with my index.html file that we have inside the public folder. So we have to understand this particular connection. So that's why we have to understand the flow of the folder structure. And once you understand that, we will automatically understand everything. Over here, there is the main file. Even app.js is not the main file, but there's one other file, which is index.js. Let's understand what index.js file is. And this is the file which is actually responsible for creating the connection between your index.html and here. Over here, if you see, we create a variable on line number 9. Ignore all of these things as of now. Ignore all of these things. On line number 7, you can see I am creating a variable root. And I am telling it, using React DOM, which is a module which I have installed, create a root. So React DOM, on that, create a root node. Create the root of what? On my document, there is an element whose ID is root. Guys, you tell me, do we have any element inside this whole project where ID is root? Do we have any such element? Yes or no? Quickly. Do we have any such element where ID is root? Yes, we have. We just saw that few seconds back. There is a div whose ID is root, right? Can I say that it means using the React DOM module, it has actually made that particular div whose ID was root, the root element, and stored that inside my root variable? Can we say that? The div element which is in index.js, it has made that root node. It has made that root of my web application of React DOM, at least inside a variable called as root. Yes, we have. Basically giving root access. Exactly. If we have understood that we have created the root node here of that particular div and stored that inside root, now on the same root variable, I am calling a method called as render. Now, what does render actually mean? Render, as of now, I will give a simple basic layman definition. It simply means on it, please display. On root display. What are you going to display? Let's remove the strict mode because we don't know what it is. But we can clearly see I am telling it on my root, please display something like this. A tag, self-closing tag, which is app. Please display on my root something which is called app. And if I simply go here, click on this app, you can clearly see it takes me to function app. So can I say that actually I am calling this particular function? It's a function. It must be invoked somewhere. And I am exporting it here. Now, since I am exporting it, I am importing it over here as well. And then using the same function call here, although in a different way. We do not call it with brackets. Although we can, but I am calling it in a different way because that's why we have to understand the sixth property called as JSX. But we can clearly understand the flow that's happening right now, which means the app file data. Even let me remove this app. Let's suppose there's no app. I will simply go create a h1 tag, and that h1 says, please subscribe if you have not already. So I am telling it on my root, which is div whose ID is root, please render h1, which is please subscribe. And if I go to my web application, you can clearly see it says please subscribe, which means in turn that whatever I will put in these render bracket, that's what will be my website. Now, instead of putting all those elements here one by one under a single parent, instead of doing that, I am actually telling it to call a function which is app. So now whatever changes I will make here, those automatically are the part of our output. Although we don't know what this function is, how is it returning HTML, we don't know why I am calling my app like a tag, a function like a tag. We will talk about that. But the flow of the web application is completely understood. Is it? Is it, guys? Quickly. Render means what we want to display. Yes. Am I clear, everyone? Please give me a quick confirmation whether we understand the flow. So it means index.js is the main entry point of my web application, where it is actually calling the app, and that's how it's finding the element. Now that there's a very important question that Ramesh has asked. Now, this is the question that I was expecting. If you look at this particular entire structure that we have, this entire structure that we have, you can completely understand and agree that index.html does not have any connection with this index.js. So how is it creating the connection? The answer lies in that when you install your React, it comes up with a webpack. There's a concept called as webpack. What do we mean by webpack? Webpack is nothing but a package bundler. Package bundler. For example, if you see, there are a lot of files here, a lot of files that you can see. Do you think these are the files that are being opened in the output? No, these are not the files. So what that webpack does in React is it actually brings all of those together and creates one file out of it for all the HTML files or all the CS files for all the JavaScript files. So webpack is a JavaScript bundler that we have, right? That's what I'm explaining, Nagendra. That webpack, there's a webpack inside my React right now, and because of that particular webpack, which is a JavaScript bundler, it actually creates bundle of it. Now when actually it creates bundle of it, at that point of time, it serves my index.html div whose id is root to index.js, or it serves this index.js to the HTML file that we have. It's because of the webpack, not the connection that we create, because there's no connection that we are creating. So that's why when we say npm start, it actually creates a bundle here. So if you go to your sources here, you can clearly see there's a static folder which is being served. In that, there's a JavaScript. Do you guys think I have a static folder here? Do you guys see I have a static folder here? No, I don't have. I've not created static folder. There's no static folder. But it means also that I'm not serving these files to the output. React already takes care of it. React uses a webpack, which is a JavaScript bundler. It bundles the output, and you can clearly see now there's only one file, which is this. And over here, it actually creates the connection on its own. And then it creates the static for whatever this is, whatever is happening. And you can see it creates a bundle.js, which means on the runtime, it actually does it. The webpack that we have. I hope this makes sense. Am I clear? So if anyone asks me, hey, there's no connection, then how is it happening? Answer is webpack, a JavaScript bundler that is doing it. Am I clear, guys? I think I should be clear. Every single person should reply in the chat. Every single person of all the 45 students who are very serious. I know 45 students are very serious. Guys, perfect. Very good. Moving forward. Now, if you look at this particular code, Sarji, I understood the flow. I understood everything. The flow, how index.html is the main file in which I have div. Then index.js is the entry point. And then I have app.js, which is my file. Where I make changes, since it's being called in the index.js, I see the output. But there are also other files, app.test. Ignore it, delete it. It is used for testing. Later on, if you write tests, in that case, you use it. Remove it. Similarly, report web vitals is for the same thing. Remove this as well. I don't need it. Setup tests, remove this as well. Logo SVG, I don't need it. It's a file image, I will remove this as well. Now, once I have removed it, report web vitals, I will remove this here as well. I will remove this here as well. So I don't need these files. Now, these are the files that I have. Even I don't need app.css because I'm not talking about CSS right now. I don't need index.css. There are two files that are very mandatory inside my SRC, which is index.js, app.js. As of now, only webpack. Only webpack. That's it. Nothing else. Webpack does this work. Okay. So we have these two files. But Sarji, okay, we understood now the whole folder structure. I don't need robots.txt. I don't need this all. I understand index.html is main file inside my public. It must have a div whose id is root. And then I have a SRC where two files are mandatory. I understood this. But Sarji, I have never seen any function returning HTML. I've never done that. I've never seen that. Whatever JavaScript I have used, over there I have used HTML, but using document model. I have told document.get element, but not directly div. What's happening here? That brings me to another discussion, another property that we were actually starting called as JSX. There is a special syntax that we use in our React. It's called JSX, JavaScript extension. It is simply, you can understand that with help of this extension, we are able to write our React code. But what is it exactly? It is simply a makeover that we do on HTML and include JavaScript on it. Or it's a makeover on JavaScript where we include HTML. It is simply combination of it is simply combination of our HTML plus our JavaScript. So it allows us, it gives us a way where we can club HTML and JavaScript together. Sometimes 80% of HTML, 20% of JavaScript, sometimes 20% of HTML and 80%, or whatever the scenario is, depends. But it's a syntax where we can actually write code combined HTML and JavaScript together. For example, until now, guys, have you ever done something like this where my element is equals to an h1 tag like this? No, we have never done that. We have never done that. But now with the help of JSX, it's allowed. So Java JSX says now it is a variable in which you can store your element. It's properly allowed. Even later on, let's suppose I will simply create a div, and inside this div I want to implement this h1 which I have created inside the variable. I can even call this element here as well, but under a particular syntax which is under inside is curly braces. So I can now call this variable anytime, and that too any times. If I want to call it 100 times, I am allowed to call it 100 times as well. So element like this. But remember, in your HTML, if you want to use any JavaScript entity, it must be wrapped in curly braces. That's the syntax. So JSX syntax for JavaScript commonly used for React. Very good, exactly. Right? So this is small syntax. Similarly, when we talk about a function, it is because of my JSX syntax, I can create a function with any name, whatever the name is, and I can tell it to return my JSX or return my h1 or div, whatever I want it to return. So it's because of the JSX that we are able to actually create something like this. Now, there's a concept that we have to understand, which is components. Remember second property which we discussed related to React, it was components. Please make sure you like this video right now. And if you have not already subscribed, please make sure you subscribe right now. If you think that I am giving you good content, only then. Second property which we discussed was components. In React, everything is a component. Everything is a component. And when we talk about creation of a component, there are two ways in React. As of now, we will discuss only one. Another one we will discuss in after 4-5 classes. Number one is we have two types of components. Number one is functional based component, function based components. Number two is class based component. And when I myself learned React, I learned React with the help of class based components only. Although nowadays we don't even think of using class based components. But what is this functional component? A single component is always created by a function. So we will simply create a function, use a function keyword or any type of function. We will give it a name, like in this example, it was app, and then we will simply tell it to return. And it will return a proper user interface. By user interface, I mean div, image, anchor, tag, or any kind of thing. So we have a way, and if you define a function, you name that function something and it returns a user interface. By user interface, I mean maybe an h1 tag or any other tag. Remember, when you do create a syntax like this, it automatically means that it is simply a component. It's a component. And always remember that functions always return only one thing. Do we have ever discussed that functions can return two things at same time? No, it cannot. Functions can always return only one thing. That's why definition according to me of a component is that returns a singular piece of UI. If anyone asks you, hey, what's a component? Component is a single piece of UI that is being created in React, and that's what we mean by function-based components or component. With respect to this particular discussion that we have done, that we have found a way of writing our HTML and JavaScript together. Don't we all guys agree that this particular thing is a valid syntax now? It's not JavaScript, it's JSX. That's why you might see in a lot of projects that overhead you can also write app.jsx. You can also write extension here index.jsx. Both of them will work. Both of them are same. Whether you write .js or JSX, it's both of them are going to work. But this is a component. Do we all agree that it is an app and it returns only one element? It does not return multiple elements. It returns only one element, which is div. Can it return another element? For example, I have here something like this. Let's suppose I will go and I will define one other h1. Can it do something like this? No. Why? Because it is not JavaScriptly correct. Syntactically, it's not correct. Your function is always supposed to return only one element. It cannot return more than that. Okay, that's why always remember that we have to return only one element out of it. So it's div. Now the question will be, sir, how can we return multiple elements out of it? I want to return h1 here as well, right? I want to write adfarshid and I want to return this as well, because that's what my need is, requirement is. I want to create a component which will have a div and then h1 at the bottom, or maybe add another component there, another image there, another element there. How? I can simply wrap this whole thing into another div, another container. So I can simply tell it, okay, create another div. And in between of this div, I can put these elements. This is one way, which means I have actually told it to return two elements, but actually wrapped them into one single element. Which means even in this case, well, it's returning only one. But there's a concept of React. If you look at this, even though we are returning internally two, but externally we are returning div. I did not want div there. I did not want div. Maybe I have implemented some CSS on div. That might change everything there, right? That's why we have a concept called as a tag without name. This is called a fragment. So you can simply use empty tags inside your JSX. It's called a React fragment. A tag without a name. It cannot have an attribute. It cannot have a style. It is a tag without a name. Okay, this is called a React fragment. Now over here I can simply go and define a variable. Let's suppose where I will simply say element is equals to, and I will go and write h1 tag, and this h1 tag is simply going to have some text which is variable verse. Now you guys tell me, this h1 tag that I have created here, I have stored it in a variable called as element. Will this be visible in the output? What do you think? What do you think? Will this be visible in the output? No, it won't be, right? Very good. It won't be. Why? Because we need to understand that app function is being rendered on my root. So unless and until it's not part of the app component, it won't be called. So that's why I can simply go here and I can simply call my JSX entity element like this. And always remember, if you want to call any JSX entity inside your H1, HTML, you must wrap them inside curly braces. Or now, if I go to my web applications output, we should see, if I refresh my page, it says there's an error that I cannot, what is this called? Can't resolve index.css. Am I calling index.css? Here. Because index.css, I deleted it, so it's no longer there. Now, if I go and refresh my page, you can clearly see variable verse. The fun part of this is we can actually call this element 100 times as well. Wherever we want to call it, we can call it. And if I go check the output, we can clearly see the same output as well. So we have understood what JSX is. Not the entire JSX, but we have understood little bit. That we are able to actually call our function as the piece of UI. This is what we mean by components. You can give them app dot any other name as well. Yes, Govind. But you have to call that name inside your index.js. As I said few seconds back, I replaced this app entirely with an h1 tag. At that point of time, app.js even did not exist. So we can call it with anything. So what is a component? A component is nothing but a function that returns a user interface. So can we create some other function? Let me create a function. So I will simply go create a about function. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to tell it to return. Return what? Return, let's suppose, an h1 tag. And that h1 tag says about page. Okay. Now you guys tell me, and always remember, use your proper JavaScript concepts. You have to always use your proper JavaScript concepts. As of now, in this app.js, I have created a component which is about. Is this a component? Yes, it is a component. Why? Because it is a function which is returning a user interface. I will create functions later on. They will not deal with user interface. They will deal with pure logic. They are not components. This is a component. Remember that. I will share the address link in few minutes. This is the component that we have. Remember that. But will this about be visible in the output automatically? Will this about be visible? No, it won't be. Right? It won't be. Why? Because, Sarji, you have defined a function in JavaScript, but you have not called it anywhere. Unless and until you do not call this function, how is it supposed to execute or do whatever it's supposed to do? So we have to call it. And where will I call it? I will simply call it here. Now, see, it's a function. So can I call it like how I used to call my JavaScript functions like this? But it's a JavaScript entity, so I have to wrap it inside curly brace. Can I call it like this about with a bracket? Like how we used to call our normal JavaScript functions in our JavaScript, which we have learned until now? What do you think? What's the answer to this? Can we call our JavaScript like this? I mean, can we call our function component like this? What do you think? Can we? I can see a lot of yeses. Confusion with what? With what? See, here I have defined an app and I am calling it like this. The question is, can I define a function and call it as a component but with a brackets? What? If I go to my output, you can clearly see about page there. So we can call a component like this. We can. Yes, we can. But there are issues with it. In this case, we cannot pass some arguments to it. By arguments, I mean we cannot pass attributes to it. Because we want to treat it as an HTML component. We want to treat it as an HTML component. So then some attributes, some arguments, some what is this called? Some what is that called? Attributes. Attributes can be passed to it. Those attributes are called props later on. We will understand that concept in another class. That's why we do not call it like this. We always call our component not like this, but we call our component less than sign, about, and then simply something like this. We call it as a HTML component, self-closing tag. Although we can call it as a complete tag as well. So if I go here and if I check now, you can clearly see about page still visible. So always remember to call your components like this. It has multiple advantages. I will show you all of those, although not today, because for that we have to discuss a lot of other things. But yes, always and always we will call our function if it is a component like this. Can we call it again? Of course we can call it. That's what we mean by reusable code. So now wherever I need h1 tag that will display about page, instead of creating the same component again, I have component already created. Now I'm going to reuse it again and again wherever I want. And now if I go here, you can clearly see, as soon as I do that, you can see those many components are visible in the output. So that's what we mean by reusability of a component. Although let me remove all of these things. I hope it makes sense. I hope I'm completely clear, right? Similarly, let me go here. Let me define another function. The name of this function is going to be contact. And over here, what I will do is I will simply tell it to return. And what is it supposed to return? It's simply supposed to return an h1 tag. And that says contact page. Now, in order to display this contact page in the output, I must make it part of app.js. Yes or no? I must call it inside my app.js. Or is there any other way? Yes, there is. But before that, I will simply call it here and I will simply call my contact like this. Like this, like this. And now if I go to my web application output, you can clearly see contact page here. But at this point of time, we can conclude to one point. When I created this component, when I created my contact, I called them in my app.js only because of one reason. Because my requirement was that about and contact are the direct children of app.js. Yes or no? Yes or no? My requirement is that about and contact are supposed to be direct children of app.js. Don't you think instead of calling my contact here, I can also call my contact here? I will simply go here and I will simply create a fragment and inside this fragment I will put my h1 tag, then I will go and call my contact. But in this case I will call it only when my requirement is when I want contact to be treated as the children of about, and then that to be treated as children of app. So if I call my contact here, it is still connected to app.js by nested function, inner functions, right? It is still part of the app.js, but not directly, which means this contact is the grandchildren of app. So its children is about, whose children is contact. So of course, this is how we can call it as well. So how can I able to call about? Because in JS it's undefined. Why do we say it's undefined? Like why is it undefined? Why would you say that, Govind? That, do you mean that because I have defined my function below, and how am I able to call it here? Is that what you mean? Above? If that is the question, you need to understand that function, normal function declaration that we have, they are hoisted properly, right? They are hoisted. So you can call them above as well. For this, please go to my Instagram or go to my LinkedIn. Over there, yesterday I actually uploaded content related to functions. You will over there understand that these functions, they are supported by hoisting, these type of functions. If I would have converted this function into a function expression, then in that case it would have been undefined. But it properly supports hoisting. So what if we call outside of return with nor approach? What will it return? See, the point is, why would we do that, Akash? Right? The point is not what it will return. The point is, why would we do that? Arrow function is hoisted. It's not arrow function. It's not a function. Arrow functions are not hoisted. If they are, in most of the cases, they are part of our function expression in front of a variable. They are not hoisted. They simply tell undefined. They give undefined if we are var, but they are not hoisted. Arrow functions are mostly used in callback functions, anonymous functions, right? The usage is different of arrow functions. Leave that aside. So Akash is asking, sir, what if I will simply go here, call my about here, right? Simply say like this, like this, like this. But why would we do that? That's the question, right? No, tomorrow's class will be have different time. I will give you the time, right? Why would we do that? So in this case, if I try to see the output, what is the output? I don't think there will be any other output, same output that we have. So it won't pay any, it won't do anything else, right? But I think you got an idea. Over here, we can call our function, but they should be pure logic. They should be pure logic. No, it will never define undefined. You can call this particular component anywhere because it's a normal function. There's no equal to sign here. There's no equal to sign. It's not a function expression. If it's a function definition directly, it will be hoisted. Always and every single time it will be called. Anywhere, above, bottom, wherever you want to call it. Remember that. Okay? Leave that aside. We are distracting from our discussion. So we can clearly see that now the Ford structure is different. But there's still one problem that we have. Do you know what the problem we have? The problem is, as of now, inside my app.js, we have only two components that we are creating, about and contact. Don't you think it has become a little bit messy here? By just implementing two components in the same file, it has become a little bit messy, right? It's not readable. Now think that when we talk about this about page, it will be very big page. It will be very big component. Similarly, when we talk about contact, it will have a lot of code. Think of 10 more components here. So that's why in React, we don't put every single code in app.js. No. But we actually create, we say there is a saying in React, there's a logic in React that says that whenever you have to create a component, make a file for it. Make a file for it. So over here, we can make directly file, but usually we create a folder and name that components, in which I create a file. And always remember, this is rule in React. You have to follow this structure, that whatever component you create, it must have the first letter uppercase. So I want to create about, so I will simply have ABOUT, but with a uppercase. So about.js. Then after that, whatever function I create, since it's a component, which means I will create function for it. If it is a component, it is a function. Remember that. Note it down. If it is a component, it's a function. Now the name of the component will be exactly same with whatever the file name is. So if file name is about.js, function name, the component name will always be about with the A capital. If my file name is contact, component name will be always also contact. If my component file name is adfar, the component name will be adfar as well. Right? So please remember that it has to be uppercase only. So now if I go here, if I go here, if I go here, now I will simply tell it to return. What? Return any h1 tag, whatever it is, and then I will simply give it some content. Now over here, you tell me, guys. Now I have removed this about here. Now about is no longer that I need. Even similarly, I will remove the contact and I will remove the about now here. I have my at the first, I mean app.js, pure app.js. Let me remove this as well. And let me remove this entire thing. Okay, and let me remove this h1 as well. Now, guys, it has a random text. It has Adfar Rashid here. Okay, some simple text. Now I want to display this about in my output. And we all can agree to one point that in order to make that, I must make this about part of this app. Yes or no? Right. Which means I have to call it here. But you guys tell me, does my app.js know there is about.js? No, it does not. Unless and until we make it, we tell it. So that's why we have import export business. As of now, this is the first topic that we will discuss in our next class. But today I will simply say export default. What about? This about default has a special meaning to it. What export default means, I will tell you in the next class. As of now, simply understand I am exporting it so that it can be imported anywhere. So I will import the about function from where, from the path that I have just inside component. There's a file called as about, and now I can call this about wherever I want to call. Which means when we define different functions, different files, you must export import them. If you do not export import them, it's not going to work. So import export is very mandatory. So now if I go to the output, you can clearly see about page still there. Although have I displayed Adfarshid in both? I don't know why I'm obsessed with my name. So let's say, please subscribe variable verse. Okay. And I need subscribers, honestly. And also there's a small request that please, once this class ends, please put a valuable feedback in the comment section. Whatever comments you have put right now, they are not visible after the class is live. So I will be really happy. I will be very much pleased if you please post a valuable feedback, whatever, whether it's positive, negative, but honest feedback always. Put it in the chat section. And now if I go to my web application, we can clearly see variable verse there. Am I clear? Am I clear until now? Do we have any questions, guys? Yes or no? Do we have any questions, guys? Yes or no? Right? Am I clear until now? So today we have understood the basic introduction to React web application. We have understood the basic introduction to all those properties. From next class, which is tomorrow, and the time of tomorrow's class will be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The class of tomorrow's time of tomorrow class will be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Usually I take classes on 10 a.m. to 12, but tomorrow I have a small meet in the morning. That's why I won't be able to join the class in the morning. But tomorrow I will have a class. We will have a class at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the request, small request, please subscribe. Also, the content that I share on my Instagram page of variable verse and on my LinkedIn, please help me share that. Unfortunately, none of you are doing that, right? No, it's just a random name, variable verse. Yes, there was a small agenda behind it that I don't want to limit it to only one specific stack. I want to include each and everything there. You can find it on our WhatsApp group, Govind. So it won't be just MERN, there will be DSA, there will be Python, there will be AI, there will be any other that you can think of in web, in technology. That's what the plan is. That's why it's verse, variable verse, because variables are used in every programming language. Google Classroom ID to all those students, who are joining first time, write your name. Okay. I have to create a new Google Classroom for React batch, which I will do tomorrow. As of now, write your name to Google Classroom ID. Your name only, full name only. Okay. Please make sure that you share this video, you like this video, you subscribe, and also the content that I share on my LinkedIn or on my Instagram, please help me reach that to different platforms or to different people as well. Help me with that, okay? Old students already know what the Google Classroom ID is, right? You have to put that Abdul Malik. You have to put your full name on that Google form that I shared. So you must mark your attendance. That's the mandatory thing, okay? You have to put your full names not here but there in the Google form. Let me share that link again. So open this link. Open this link. No, no, not detail, but just the crux of it, like what we have discussed. No, no, you have to join that React as well, but I will share that later on. As of now, use the previous name Basu. Give me the feedback of today's class, guys. Come on, give me the feedback of today's class. I think we have taken a good introductory session of React. We will continue tomorrow, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Please make sure you join on the same time, and everyone, please join. Okay, please make sure that. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Good night, and see you in the next class. Good night. Allah Hafiz. Bye. Thank you so much, Govind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means a lot. That is actually the agenda behind it, to give the good premium content free of cost, right? So that's what the plan is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Sarjoy. Thank you so much. Bye. Good night, everyone. Good night. See you in the next class. Thank you so much, Adi. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone. Classroom ID is your full name, Nandi. Okay. I want to hear the feedback from all the students who joined first time. Who joined first time? Good night. Good night, everyone. Perfect. Great. Thank you, guys. Bye, everyone. Good night. Bye bye.